Somewhere in the distance, I hear joy in a song I'll never know. These curse, I can take it. I pray for the dying have a glow. You know I can't wither away over the shadows the living winds await. Time is still racing like a river day by day.果てしない世界へ暗闇を駆け抜けて The time to find a place where I belong. I know it's a birthday, a heaven, the place we live with purple ribbon.
Citrine is my favorite support frame because of the sheer utility she provides. Health regeneration, energy and health orbs, 90% damage reduction, status priming along with a status chance and duration bonus, crowd control and a critical chance bonus. When built properly, she is remarkably tanky and effective in both team and solo compositions. Playing Citrine is simple since her abilities are straightforward and no necessary synergies are required to bring out the most from her kit. This makes her an extremely versatile frame, who shines the most as a generalist but is well suited for specialist roles as well. Before I show you how I built Citrine, let us look into her abilities first so we can understand what stats to go for when modding her. For her passive, Citrine emits an aura which provides a health regeneration buff to herself and her teammates. This regeneration amount starts at 5 HP per second and scales up to 25 HP per second upon picking up 200 health orbs. The radius of this aura is set at 50 meters. It is equal to the affinity sharing radius, but it does not scale with the affinity radius itself. Although the regeneration amount seems small, it can be substantial when paired with damage mitigation sources. Citrine slices enemies in a forward cone, dealing impact and slash damage and inflicting their status effects. For the duration of these status effects, the enemies tagged by Fractured Blast have a chance to drop health and energy orbs on death. Strength affects the initial damage of the ability and the percent chance to drop orbs. Drop chances over 100% can yield in multiple orbs. Range affects the length of the forward cone but not its angle. Duration of the orb drop chance bonus depends on the duration of the inflicted status proc, not the ability duration. This is an extremely useful first ability as it is quick to cast, can prime multiple enemies and generates a surplus amount of orbs. The health orbs make stacking her passive easy and are also useful for activating conditional effects. Preserving Shell is Citrine's survivability tool. She grants 40% damage reduction to herself and her allies, which scales to a max of 90% with kills or assists. In their absence, it can decay to a minimum of 25%. Strength affects the initial damage reduction percentage and the bonus increment on kills and assists. Duration affects how long this ability lasts. The range of this ability is 50 meters and scales with affinity radius, which means unlike Citrine's passive, Preserving Shell's radius can be increased with affinity range bonuses. Having 90% damage reduction is equivalent to having 10 times the EHP, which is a welcome bonus for frames who health tank, and is substantial enough to even help the squishier frames. Citrine summons an immobile gem which will grant a status chance and status duration bonus to her and her allies within a radius. This gem will also project a beam onto enemies targeted by Citrine and her allies under 2 activation conditions. Being in the effective radius and shooting an enemy anywhere, or being anywhere and shooting an enemy in the effective radius. This beam will deal damage composed of heat, cold, electric, toxin, and will proc their respective status effects. The beam practically has infinite range, infinite punch through, and does not care about any LOS requirements with the target. Strength affects the beam damage and the plus status chance bonus, Duration affects the gem duration and the plus status duration bonus, and range affects the gem's effective radius. The status chance and status duration bonuses are additive with their respective weapon mods. Status procs from the beam are also useful for activating conditional effects like arcanes and mods. Fractured Blast can also be used to achieve the beam's activation condition, and the plus status duration provided by Prismatic Gem boosts the Fractured Blast status durations. Citrine releases fractals that will target enemies in a 190-degree frontal cone and cause crystal growths upon contact. Hitting these crystals with a weapon will set its critical chance to 300%. Enemies who are not immune to crowd control effects also get immobilized in place. This ability also has an augment, Recrystallize, which makes it so that killing a crystallized enemy by striking the crystal growth will make it spread to surrounding enemies. These crystals will only spread the critical chance bonus and not the immobilization effect. Strength affects the damage dealt when fractals make contact with an enemy. Duration affects how long the crystal growths last. Similar to Fractured Blast, range affects how far the fractals can target enemies and not the cone angle. Modding for range also affects the augment spread range. Although this is a great ability on its own, my Citrine builds usually Helminth this out since it has two major drawbacks. It sets the critical chance to 300% instead of increasing it by 300%. This means weapons which are already at the same critical tier or are at a higher tier get no bonus and in the worst case will lose some damage. It devalues weak spot multipliers because to get crystallizes bonus you are forced to shoot the crystal growths. This often means that you will be missing weak spot bonuses like headshots, which are separate damage multipliers. Crystallize can still be worth using for the crowd control effect, or when using weapons with low base critical chance which also lack an innate weak spot multiplier. Considering the Helminth system, there are multiple abilities which can replace Crystallize. Breathe Surge, Roar, Terrify, and Gloom are all solid options and provide a natural extension to Citrine's capabilities. In the build being showcased later, the Helminth exclusive ability, Sickening Pulse, will be used. Casting this ability emits a radial pulse, which expands over time. Enemies hit by this pulse have new stacks of each pre-inflicted status effect added. Duration affects the pulse expansion duration and range affects the initial pulse radius. This ability and its interactions with Citrine's kit will be discussed further in the build section of this video. Since Citrine gets 90% damage reduction from her second ability, she can be built as a health tank who can easily survive high-level steel path missions. Adaptation is to double down on the damage reduction, and since Citrine's base armor is not high enough to warrant using steel fiber, we use health conversion for a flat armor bonus. Arcane Blessing provides us with extra health, and both of these can be stacked easily using her first ability. Equilibrium and Primed Flow are for convenience, and either can be replaced by Archon Shards which provide a similar effect. The first stat priority for this build is range, provided by Overextended and Archon Stretch. Archon Stretch can be replaced by regular Stretch. A thing to note is when using Citrine, its conditional effects get activated frequently due to the electric procs from Prismatic Gem. Blind Range and Molt Augmented provide strength, both to counter the negative from Overextended and for increasing the status chance and the orb drop chance bonus. Ability efficiency does not matter because her first ability already generates a surplus amount of energy orbs. Archon Continuity is important since it makes her third ability proc corrosive alongside the primary elements. A single corrosive proc is only useful as another status for condition overload like effects, but its armor strip can be boosted from 26 to 80% by using Sickening Pulse. Due to armor values on enemies being capped to 2700 since the Jade Shadows update, this can act as a significant damage boost for all players in the squad. The Aura and XLS mod are up to personal preference. Use Prime Sure-Footed if you have a copy. Although Archon Shards are not necessary, using one Tau Forged Emerald Shard can be helpful since Sickening Pulse can overflow corrosive procs over 11. If running multiple Emerald Shards, it can even full strip enemies. Purple Shards with the Equilibrium effect can be used to replace Equilibrium mod on the build to make more mod space. Amber Casting Speed Shards are useful if you feel her cast times are slow. Focus School being used is Madrai for the casting speed and the ability strength bonus. The weapon I like using with Citrine is the Paris Incarnon. The chosen evolutions are Deadly Pace, Swift Deliverance, and Elemental Balance. This Paris build is slightly different from a regular primary build. The Arcane used his longbow sharp shot, which provides a 4 times damage multiplier after hitting a headshot. Since the Arcane does not provide base damage here, it needs to be sourced from a mod. For this purpose, Serration can be used. This build uses a Riven. Galvanized Aptitude is a must-run mod, since it will be providing a plus 560% multiplicative damage bonus due to the 8 different statuses the Citrine build procs. Galvanized Chamber is for multi-shot. It can be replaced with split flights, but that can make headshots inconsistent due to the negative accuracy. Critical delay and galvanized scope to hit red crits and primed shed to offset the fire rate negatives on the build. Another good modding option is to replace one of the crit chance mods by faction mod or a status damage mod, which will be a separate damage multiplier. This build also uses the Paris Prime exclusive augment, Visage Bal, as the Excellus mod. This not only provides a 90% status chance bonus, which is a direct DPS increase in the Excellus slot, it also synergizes with our health tank build by providing health regen. The elemental mod uses a Toxin 60/60. Gas is the element of choice on the Paris Incarnon because it synergizes extremely well with the build. The gas clouds formed will be highly lethal since they will be scaling off multiple damage multipliers. High status chance on the Paris Incarnon and Citrine status chance buff allow it to proc multiple stacks consistently. The status duration buff allows these extremely lethal clouds to linger for long durations. On top of that, Sickening Pulse can be used to instantly max out the gas stacks, which will increase the gas cloud radius to 6 meters. An alternative for gas on this build is to use Blast. This can be done by replacing the Toxin 60/60 by a Cold 60/60. A slight downside to using Blast instead of gas is that the damage of the blast explosion cannot benefit from the status duration bonus. For the melee weapon, I am using the Praedos as a movement stats trick, primarily to get Deadly Pace's fire rate bonus. The secondary weapon and companion are up to player preference. As Warframe has evolved, so has the concept of the ideal support frame. The meta has shifted away from frames specifically designed for support, moving instead towards frames that provide support as an addition to other utilities. Citrine follows this design philosophy, with her abilities offering a wide variety of buffs while also being an extremely well-rounded tank. She can be played in a variety of roles, and the purpose of this video was to give an overview of her capabilities and showcase some interesting weapon and ability synergies, which can serve as a springboard for further build crafting. Despite nearly 2 years having passed since Citrine's release, I don't see her being used much, especially when compared to the other more popular support frame, and I hope this video has provided enough reasons to warrant giving her a try.